Hi guys, welcome. And who dat? I'm Joe, and I'm here to do another postmortem for our beloved New Orleans Saints as they travel to Carolina and for the second year in a row lose in Carolina to the Carolina Panthers 22-14. It was a pretty rough game to watch. There were times during the game when I felt that we didn't even have a chance to win. And that was because of the offense. And there were times during the game when I thought we could very well easily win this game because of the play of our defense for the most part. But there's a lot of blame to go around for this loss. All over the place, we messed up. We messed up on special teams. We messed up on defense a few times. This was the first game where the defense gave up a couple of really big plays. And the defense can't be perfect. I don't believe we're one of the worst teams in the league, and that's because of the stellar play of our defense. But it looks pretty bad right now. Let's bring up the stats, and we're going to go through this pretty quick. I want to get to the end of this video when I talk about the problems I see with the Saints, and everybody has an opinion. Well, here's the stats, and these are the facts. Quarterback James Winston, 25 of 41. For 353 yards, one touchdown, two interceptions. Okay, so technically his completion percentage this week was slightly worse than last week. However, last week it felt like a much worse performance. Against Tampa Bay, he had 25 completions. He only had 238 yards. In this game, 353. That's a whole lot better. Of course, a lot of that was garbage yardage is what they like to call it when you're trying to play catch up. But we were in this game, as far as the score goes, we were in this game till the end. The two interceptions Winston threw, I don't blame him for at all. Those are two interceptions that at the end of the year, when we're looking at his final stats, I'm going to remember those two. The first one being blocked at the line of scrimmage by a blitzing cornerback safety, which James Hurst didn't pick up. He didn't block it. That ball gets tipped in the air and intercepted. Not really Jameis's fault. The last interception came when we're trying to throw a Hail Mary out of our own end zone. You have to try something. So overall, although his percentage was slightly worse than against Tampa Bay, I felt like Jameis Winston played a much better game. He was more accurate. He connected on the deep throws a couple of times. But he still has some of the same issues that he's had in other games this year and in his career. We'll get back to Winston in a second. A lot of passing yards there, though. That's the kind of quarterback he is. He finishes with a lot of passing yards, but the teams aren't very successful. In the running game, our worst game of the year so far, running the ball, nobody averaged 4 yards a carry except for Kamara. I don't even think he averaged 4 yards a carry. Just at 4 yards, 0.06 average per carry. So Kamara, 15 carries, 61 yards. He didn't look good the whole game. It looked like as though his rib was still bothering him. But the offensive line's run blocking this week was pretty bad. The stain on Kamara is he did fumble the ball, and that was a scoop and score. Against Tampa Bay, we had a pick six, and against Carolina, we allow a scoop and score. So Ingram finishes with 5 carries for 18 yards and a touchdown. Jameis Winston ran the ball twice for 5 yards. We didn't crack 100 yards rushing this week, and I'm used to this team getting 140, 150 yards rushing a game. Kamara only had 27 yards receiving as well. No, actually just 12. We're going to look at the receivers now. Chris Olave. Everybody says he's a star was born in this game. Well, 9 catches, 147 yards. Chris Olave leads the team so far through 3 games in receiving yards and targets. Trayquan Smith played his first game of the year. He caught 4 balls for 105 yards. It's been a long time since we've had 2 receivers with over 100 yards. Smith hit his head on the turf after his 4th catch. I think that was the biggest one of the day for him. Got a concussion and missed the rest of the game. Michael Thomas, 5 catches, 49 yards. He apparently hurt his toe during the game and did not return. Jarvis Landry, 2 catches, 22 yards. He hurt his ankle during the game and didn't return. The only touchdown the team had through the air, Marcus Marcus Callaway, 1 catch, 4 yards. It was an incredible, highlight reel worthy catch. He actually saved an interception because it was an awful pass from Winston. There's your offensive stats. Let's talk about the defense now. Once again, Pete Werner with 11 total tackles. Shy Tuttle, defensive tackle, with 7 total tackles. Linebacker Demario Davis, 5 tackles and a sack. P.J. Williams got a lot of playing time, 5 tackles total. Cam Jordan had 4 total tackles, including a sack. Courtney Roby had 4 total tackles. Tyrann Mathieu had 4 total tackles. And I'll also mention Granderson had a half a sack, and defensive back J.T. Gray had a half a sack. So altogether, our defense got 3 sacks. Best output so far statistically. We held Baker Mayfield to only 170 yards passing. He had 1 touchdown, which was a 67-yarder. It was a wide receiver screen to Chenault. And there were 2 missed tackles on it. P.J. Williams missed him right where he caught the ball, and Tyrann Mathieu took an awful angle and let him run right past him. And that big play was the biggest play against the defense so far this year. At that point, we were only down by 6. So when the defense allowed that, it felt like nothing can go right for this team in this game. Even when we inch back to within 6 points, the defense finally gives up a big play. It puts us down 2 scores again, and being down 2 scores with this offense feels like a challenge. We have not been able to score in the first half of any of these games. I hear a lot of people saying we've only had 1 good quarter, and that's the 4th quarter against the Falcons. Well, wouldn't everybody love to play a 4th quarter against the Falcons? Offensively for the Panthers, McCaffrey had 25 carries, which is a ton of carries for a running back. He finished with 108 yards. We allow another 100-yard rusher, but like I said, McCaffrey's one of the best in the league, and he had 25 carries. He averaged 4.3 yards a carry. That's what you want from your running back. He basically had 1 really long run of 27 yards, and then he had a couple of other nice runs. But other than that, we held him in check pretty good on the ground. He only finished with a couple of catches. Chenault was their leading receiver with 90 yards because of that huge 67, 70-yard screen pass for a touchdown he had. He had 2 catches for 90 yards. No one else on the Panthers team had more than 2 catches. No one else on the Panthers team had more than 22 yards receiving. Like I say, Mayfield ended with 170 yards, and about 70 of it came from one play. So Our defense once again played great. Overall, we held the team to 22 points. Well, 7 of them came on the scoop and score when the offense was on the field. So, defense allows 15 points. Last week, same thing. We lose to Tampa Bay. We let them score 20 points, but 7 of them comes on a defensive touchdown. It means our defense held them to 13 points. And defense can play great all year long and keep us in games as long as the offense can figure it out. And they're not able to do that right now. There's a lot of blame to go around for this loss. In my opinion, it starts from the top. Owner, general manager, head coach, quarterback. Now that's the progression. No matter whether the entire team is to blame, if you end your season with a horrible record and you just play piss poor football, somebody has to get the blame. Somebody has to be changed, right? So I hear a lot of the national pundits talking about Jameis Winston, defending him, saying that the fans are being too hard on him. They want to change. They talk about Andy Dalton, and it's the national media's perspective of it that's but the local media that's telling the fans to chill out. I don't mind that you have a different opinion, but don't treat the fans as though we're stupid. We don't know what's going on. Nobody knows exactly what's going on except for Jameis Winston. And then to a degree after that, the coaches and players and staff around them. Okay, they know better than us. They know better than the media. But us fans watch football as a fan, and we have our opinion about it. And yeah, sometimes we hate a player, and then they finally turn it around, and then we end up loving them anyway. That happens. But a lot of times it doesn't. A lot of times we say Ian Book's no good for weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks, and then finally they let Ian Book go. They might not have wanted him to go, but they took a chance. And sometimes us fans get it right too. And we have an opinion about this stuff. It's not just Jameis Winston's fault, but eventually something's got to change. So where do you make the change? Good luck drafting an offensive lineman in the first round next year because, we don't have a first round pick. And the way we're playing, it's going to be a nice pick for Philadelphia. We have to make some changes within the staff we have now. There aren't going to be very many big changes. I don't think any fans saying that Andy Dalton's better than Jameis Winston. What they're saying is Jameis Winston can't perform right now. Why don't you go ahead and play the veteran backup who we're paying $3 million up to $6 million a year for, especially against a team like Carolina. But I digress. Okay, Winston's numbers against Carolina weren't awful. His interception numbers for the year so far look bad. Like I said, I don't fault him for the 2 this week. We did not have a lot of great players this week. Andres Pete was having a bad game. He ended up getting hurt and leaving the game. We had to put Calvin Throckmorton in, who has been pretty good in preseason and camp, except he had a pretty bad game against Carolina. James Hurst didn't have a very good game either. Ryan Ramczyk didn't have a very good game. When does Cesar Ruiz have a good game? And Eric McCoy, I don't know if it was this game or last week when he got flagged for 2 holding penalties, but if the quarterback's not able to make the calls at the line of scrimmage as far as blocking and assignments and picking up blitzes go, if the center doesn't do it and the quarterback doesn't do it, then nobody's doing it. And I don't know if McCoy's the kind of guy that does that. I don't think he is. I think Drew Brees did it his whole career, and Jameis Winston isn't capable of doing it. Maybe Jameis Winston's doing it and nobody's listening. There's definitely a communication problem. The offensive line is a huge problem for this team. And I don't know how you make it better. It's not like you can just go pick up somebody off the street and they're going to come in and be any better than the guys we already have. It's possible, but I think there's also a lot of potential. If everybody across the board on the offensive line plays to their potential, it's a decent offensive line. We only allowed one sack this week. And since we allowed 10 sacks in the first two games, statistically, that looks pretty good. And looking at the film, pass protection was slightly better. But there's still communication problems. I mean, if it's one on one, especially run blocking this week, if it's one on one and you lose your matchup, we're not going to be able to run the ball. And if you pass protect great for 80% of the game, but you allow a sack, a free cornerback to block a pass that gets picked. Another problem was the special teams. Will Lutz went 0 for 2 on field goal attempts. One of them was blocked. Not sure if the trajectory was too low or if the line in front of him didn't block good enough. But he missed that one, and then he flat out missed another one. It was close, but it was off to the right, and he's missed one already this year off to the left. So right now he's only 3 out of 6 on field goals. Not going to panic when it comes to Will Lutz, that's for sure. It's just that nothing was working right for the team this week. Blake Gillikin had a good game, fine game, averaged 47.7, I think, a punt. Um, no problems there. But we were down Deontay Hardy, so our returners were Dwayne Washington on kick returns. He averaged 18.7, which is great. Hardy averaged 30. So, but 18.7 is okay. Uh, Jarvis Landry was on punt returns. He had two for 17 yards. That's an average of about 9. That's okay. Olave's doing great. Um, when you have Michael Thomas and Jarvis Landry and Chris Olave on the field, it's going to be really hard for them to focus on Olave. They're going to have to focus on Thomas. And Jarvis Landry's a beast. He's a great route runner and he gets open. Chris Olave gets open too, especially if it's just going to be one guy on him. So I expect Olave to finish the year with the most receiving yards. But I would assume Michael Thomas would finish with the most catches. It seems like Thomas is covered on almost every play, but he still manages to make the catch. If I was the quarterback, kind of like when Drew Brees was with us and Thomas had that record breaking year, Drew Brees was smart. He knew if I just throw it to Thomas, I'll be all right. And to me, Thomas and then Alvin Kamara, that's your two that you should focus on. I mean, if you drop back to pass and the blitz is coming and it hasn't been picked up, Kamara's got to be that option. And I don't know if this is Jameis Winston reading everything wrong or if Pete Carmichael's designing plays wrong. I don't know. It feels like the play calling hasn't been very good this year. You know, Pete Carmichael has been with the team a long time. He had a chance to be the play caller for 3 years, and we finished in the top 6 in offense every time he was the play caller, even under Sean Payton. So I don't think Pete Carmichael's a horrible offensive coordinator, play caller. But when you have a quarterback like Drew Brees, he can probably make some bad calls good, smart enough to make a change at the line of scrimmage, change it to another play, change protection, stuff like that. Brees would even change routes that receivers were running within the play that was called based on what Brees saw. We're never going to have a quarterback like that again, you know, you would think in our lifetime. But quarterbacks have to do certain things. They have to be able to see an open guy. They have to be able to take what they can take. The biggest example I have of this in this Carolina game was when we were in the red zone and it was 3rd and 3, and Alvin Kamara ran a 5-yard route in the middle of the field, turned around, he was wide open. The entire Carolina defense was in the end zone trying to stop a touchdown. But if we could have got 3 yards, we would have had a fresh set of downs within the red zone. And Winston didn't even think about dumping it off to Kamara. He wanted to take the shot in the back corner of the end zone with Landry. Landry either ran the wrong route or Winston threw it the wrong way, but it was incomplete by a mile. We have to settle for a field goal attempt, and that was the one that was blocked. If you just take the 5 yards in front of you when it's 3rd and 3 to Alvin Kamara, there's a chance he catches it and makes a move and scores. If he catches it, it's a first down either way. And you're throwing the ball. I mean, you're throwing it on 3rd and 3 because you can't get the running game going. Not good enough. Winston has, in my opinion, I think that Pete Carmichael's calling plays a certain way to benefit what Winston does best. This offense has always been an offense, fit for a quarterback like Drew Brees, short, medium, accurate. And if Pete Carmichael's designing, this play calling around what Winston can do, it just feels off. It doesn't go with a defensive minded strategy of a defensive head coach of a team with a good defense to try to take a deep shot every time when it's a close scoring game. You can't get the running game going, it doesn't open anything else up. But we have playmakers on this team. You dump the ball off to Kamara and you see what he can do. You dump it off to you throw it to Michael Thomas. You know he can catch it. Let's see what happens. You have to have play calls involving motion and running plays so that play action pass comes into effect. So that when you go in a jumbo set and you are obviously going to run, you can actually pass from that formation because they're respecting your run. But if the offensive linemen don't make the blocks, we're not going to have any power runs that work. And then after that, you can get fancy all you want. But offensive line needs to improve. Jameis Winston's decisions need to get better. And the coaching structure needs to get better. Right now, it feels like the whole damn thing's coming off the rails. And like I say, you can put the blame on everybody, and you should. But when it comes down to making actual changes, someone's going to have to get fired. Oh, it's way too early in the season for that. But let's hope they can turn this thing around this week coming up in London versus Minnesota. That's your postmortem for me. I'm Joe. Subscribe to Roosevelt 10 for more videos like this. And until then, who dat?